Attention on deck. You're about to take command. Welcome to the bunker.
Welcome, everybody, back to the bunker. Yes, we have a bonus episode for you this week. We are still riding high of the Washington Commanders, still playing meaningful football in January. We're here to talk about the Washington Commanders 23, the Bucks 20. I am joined by broadcasting royalty here in the UK and across the world, Mr. Richard Graves. Richard, how are you, sir?
Yeah, great to be invited onto this show and great to share in the joy finally for Commanders fans because, look, there's no two ways of getting around it. I think any fans have sympathy when they see people going through it as the Commanders have over the years. And to have a prospect in Jaden Daniels like the Commanders have right now, new head coach obviously at the helm, and to win a game like the Commanders did on Sunday night in Tampa's something else. So, yeah, good time to be involved with the Commanders, I think, right now.
Must have pained you to say that with that Cowboys helmet sitting behind you.
Hey, look, you've got to share the sympathy sometime.
Well, you know, I won't go in too much to the Cowboys season. But Richard, you've covered the NFL for a number of years, talked about it for a number of years. Has it even surprised you with what Washington have done this season? We went from the Ron Rivera era last year, where we won 4 games in a season. So Dan Quinn's come in this season, and we've been talking about, hey, look, let's rebuild. Let's just slowly move on. We're thinking if we can win 7 games, 8 games, it'll be incredible. To win 12 games in the regular season, to then go to Sunday Night Football and beat the Bucks in Tampa and win a playoff game. I'm sitting here as a fan of this football team, this franchise since 1997. Never got to experience anything like this in my fandom. Has it even surprised you with what the Washington Commanders have done this season?
Yeah, it has to. Anybody that says, no, I expected it, I'm sorry, you're flat out wrong. Because rookie quarterbacks, as a rule, don't just come into this league and play the way Jaden Daniels has throughout the course of this season. Now, fine, I'll feather my own bed a little bit and say, coming out of the draft, I'll be honest with you, I'm on record as saying, for me, Jaden Daniels was my preference out of the rookie quarterback class. I thought he was a great pick for the Commanders, and the fact that he fell to you in the draft was a little bit of heaven-sent gold dust. And that's really been borne out by his performances this season. I think Dan Quinn, obviously, my connections with Dallas, know all about him defensively. I think you've got to say that even by his standards, what he's been able to do to turn around one of the worst defensive units in the entire NFL last season into a unit that complements this young offense this time around, a team that's put together 12 wins in the regular season. But more impressive than that is a team that's showed a tenacity, a belief, a grit, that never say die attitude. What is it? 6 regular season games, being regular time or overtime, when it's come down to the final minute, and somehow the Commanders have found a way to get the job done. That's what's really impressive about it. And then you factor in how young this team is coming together in the first season under Dan Quinn with the rookie quarterback, as we've said as well. And at this point, at least, I know Commanders fans will be understandably skeptical and say, well, we've experienced something like this before. But at this point, I've got to say the future looks incredibly bright around Washington.
How much of it is on having already what people are saying, an elite quarterback in Washington? We've had the merry-go-round that's gone on for years and years and years. We've had 3 or 4 quarterbacks in one season. People have said to me all the time, I've been doing this since just about 2020. I've been sitting down speaking to people. Spoke to Doc Walker. I've spoke to people that are very in the Washington organization. They keep saying to me season after season, Andy, we just need to get the right guy under center. Once we get that, we'll be okay. Albeit we had to get rid of what's gone on off the field. That has been a tremendous help to what's gone on in Washington. But everything that's gone on the field, how much do you atone that to Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn.
It's huge. That's the key relationship in the organization. There are a number of NFL teams, franchises that would give their right arm to have that quarterback. You can go through the league and look at teams like Miami, for example. Under Mike McDaniels, the last 3 years, they've had all the chess pieces, running back, defensive standouts, wide receivers. Tua Tagovailoa, is he the man for Miami? Well, the jury's probably still out because of his health record and the amount of time he's spent off the field as much as he has on it. When he's on song, that offense hums. But when he's not on the field or he's not on song, that team becomes middle of the road. And that's probably the best example I can give you when you talk about how important is having that top end quarterback in the National Football League. All of a sudden you look at Washington and they've got a rookie QB that comes in, is seemingly unfazed no matter the situation. He doesn't have elite Lamar Jackson type of playmaking ability with his legs, but he has just enough to extend plays. And if there's a hole there, he can rush for a first down, enough to make defenses have to plan for him making plays with his legs. And then equally, if he rolls out of the pocket or he's got a receiver downfield, he can hit them. I think also what needs to be factored into this equation is having a standout wide receiver, and Terry McLaurin is exactly that. For me, underrated for too long because, dare I say it, he's been part of the Washington Commanders organization, a franchise which hasn't been winning enough games, so he goes under the radar a little bit. People this season have started to take notice and pay lip service to him. And that grab he made last night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was nothing short of sensational. I think I heard in the commentary them talk about him as the best contested catcher in the NFL. Well, there are a few people that will probably try and argue that case, but if he's not the best, he's certainly in the top 5.
Rich, what do you make of when we watch the game, when we look it back, the Commanders have gone for it on 4th down all season. We went for it last night a few times and failed, and I was shouting at my TV to kick the field goal. But when we did go for it again on 4th down and we got a touchdown, it ultimately ended up with us winning the game, put us in a winning position to drive. All right, we had to make a stop when we drove down the field and kicked a winning field goal. Is this kind of where we are with like the modern day NFL? I've watched NFL since I was 17, 16, so 1997, where you wouldn't, if it was 4th and 1, you wouldn't dare. It seems to be the modern day football. Is that something that you like to see? Is it, we could be sitting here recording a very different podcast if that had gone wrong. How did you see it when you were watching it? Was it bravery? Was it stupid? Or was it just where we are with football these days?
Well, if you convert and score the touchdown, as the Commanders did last night, it's brave, it's bold, it's positive. If that pass goes incomplete and they walk away for the second time in probably as many minutes from the red zone with no points and trailing by 4, well, it's stupid. Look, the modern in vogue word's analytics, isn't it? Everybody lives and dies by analytics. I'm probably from a halfway house. I think there are times in games, stages of games when you can just feel it. It's right to roll the dice and go for it. Equally, I think there's a role for pragmatism in the modern day NFL as well. And I will tell you, in a tight, close game, playoff football on the road, if the points are on offer, take the points. Now, I get it. Dan Quinn and the Commanders have been one of these teams that go for it on 4th down a lot this season. It's their MO. And it probably, I don't know the exact stats. My feeling is, having watched the game, that it came off for the Commanders on Sunday night as much as it didn't. But I've got to tell you, when you're deep into the game and there's 4 points in it and you're handed the ball, if you kick the field goal, fine, you're not ahead. You're trading by 1. But it doesn't really matter what the Buccaneers do. You're still going to get the ball and have a chance to tie the game, go ahead. It was bold in the extreme. It's not for me. I didn't like it, but it came off. And look, it's been that long since the Commanders last enjoyed success in the postseason. Frankly, I don't think anyone in Washington cares right now what I think. It's onto the divisional round and a trip to Detroit. And everybody around Washington, I've got to say, has every right to enjoy this week because it's a team that has certainly earned it.
Rich, do you think we legitimately stand a chance against Detroit? I recorded all of last week. My co-hosts Andy and Jesse were on with me. Everyone we spoke to was like, just enjoy the game down at the Bucks, guys. And we're like, we legitimately, our hearts probably ruled our heads. But obviously, I've watched every single game this season. We've been out to the States to watch games. You know what I mean? We've seen this Commanders team really develop. I genuinely felt that we could win this game. I generally think we can go into Detroit with Jaden Daniels firing on all cylinders like he is. And potentially, this would be the biggest upset of the season. And that's me saying that as a Washington Commanders fan.
No, it would.
How far can this Commanders
without a
team
doubt
go?
right now?
How far do you think we can go? Is it possible that we can win on Sunday against the Lions?
Of course, it's possible. You've only got two horses at the races in this one, and we've seen it before. You know, there's a reason they say any given Sunday in the National Football League. It's because upsets can happen. That's the beauty of this game. It's a league built on the concept of parity, that if you're the worst team 1 year, 3-4 years from now, you could be lifting the Lombardi trophy. And the turnaround we've seen just in 12 months with the Washington Commanders, new ownership, new head coach, new quarterback. If you'd asked me 18 months ago, was it possible that we'd see the Commanders in this position right now? I'd have said it's possible. Would I have believed it? No, not a chance. But yet here we are. A lot's changed. And a lot will change going forward if what I hear is true in terms of having a new stadium built and the momentum behind the Commanders organization that's coming out of DC right now. The problem I've got with going into Detroit is that as well as the defense has played and improved over the course of this season, I'm looking down the schedule in the regular season and I'm struggling to find the last time Washington didn't give up at least 19 points in a game. I think you're going probably all the way back to October. Chicago, as it turns out, looking on the schedule in front of me, kept them to 15 points. Well, the Detroit Lions score points on a home surface that's going to be fast. In that atmosphere, they're going to score points on Sunday. The best chance the Washington Commanders have of winning this game is if they can limit the number of times Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions offense hold the ball. You've got to shorten the game. That means the running game has got to be good. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler have got to be able to pound that rock. Jaden Daniels is going to have to make plays with his legs, and more so than he did on Sunday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know what it was he finished with, 33, 34 rushing yards.
He was our leading rusher. Yeah, he was our leading. I think that's the third week running. He's been our leading rusher. I think he rushed for 36 yards.
Yeah, that
was minimal for him.
That cannot be the case if the Commanders to go into Detroit this weekend and win. They've got to control the time possession, control the ball. They've got to win in the trenches. Will they do it? Now, that's another question entirely. Look, there's a reason that you look at the odds makers, and I think the opening line's something like Detroit 8.5-point favorites going into this game, and that's because they find the end zone, they put points on the board for fun. The last time a team kept them close, the Vikings, final game of the regular season, Detroit were only 10-6 up in that game at the half. They finished with 31 points on the board. They're an explosive team. They can turn it around in a flash, and that is why the challenge is so great for the Commanders going into this one, and why you would think, when you look at the breadth of work from both teams over the course of the year, that it's a tall order, but it's not impossible.
It's not, mate. It's not. Hey, look, this season, nothing's going to surprise me now. I had us down. I think I said within our preview just before we flew to the States, I said, look, I'll be happy if we win 6 games. That's where I was after what I saw last season. Rich, I know your time's very precious, my friend. Let's briefly just touch on the NFC East. For those watching on YouTube, yes, Richard has got a Cowboys helmet behind him. I'm really sorry about that. What's got? I'm not going to gloat, Rich. I'm not going to gloat. I mean, but what the hell has happened to the Dallas Cowboys?
Where do you want to start with that one? It's been a tough year, and it's everybody will judge the Cowboys by the results on the field, rightly so. But I will tell you this: anybody that's kept an eye on Dallas over the last 12 months will say that the performance on the field is a direct reflection of what's happened off it over the last year. You know, at the end of last season, obviously, Dan Quinn, who'd turned around their defense, leading the league in takeaways in 2 of the previous 3 seasons, top 10 last season as well. Well, he goes. He also takes with him a number of the depth players, if you like, players like Dorrance Armstrong, who've been standout for the Commanders this year. Dallas didn't replace any of these players. They basically stood still through free agency. Jerry Jones appeared to believe, despite telling the world that he was all in for the 2024 season, that you could stand pat and just add through the draft and you'd be good with what you had. Well, they didn't particularly draft very well. Glaring need running back, didn't replace Tony Pollard in the backfield, didn't replace Dorrance Armstrong and co on the defensive line. And you saw in the opening 2 months of the season, really, if you wanted to run the ball on Dallas, well, you could put anybody back there. You could probably have gone back there, Andy, and been successful.
Even with my dodgy knees and bad hip.
Even with your dodgy knees. So, and then it's compounded by the fact that you lose Trayvon Diggs at the start of the season with injury. Deron Bland doesn't start the season. Indeed, it was November before he came back from a training camp foot injury. Micah Parsons misses 6 weeks. DeMarcus Lawrence misses time much of the season as well. So all of these become cumulative effects. And say what you will about the way Dallas played. Of course, they've got Dak Prescott missed half the season. He wasn't playing that well before he got injured, if truth be known. But it's an organizational problem in Dallas. You've had 3 straight years of 12-win seasons, haven't really done anything in the playoffs. The pressure mounts off the field. You then, as an organization, don't move forward. You don't improve what you have potentially on the field going forward in the off season. And I don't think it's a surprise, really, that Dallas didn't come close to 10 wins this year. They will look at it, and I'm sure you'll hear people say, well, injuries were a problem. Yeah, they were, but there was more to the story than that. And I think it's a bit of a wake-up call to everybody around the organization that, even in Dallas, you don't have a God-given right to win games and go straight to the postseason.
I took every bit of pleasure in hearing that, Rich. You won't be surprised to hear, my friend. Rich, just finishing up, my friend. NFL in the UK, obviously, you've been heavily involved with the product growing over here. I know our fans are always interested to hear what's going on with the NFL UK. Obviously, last week we announced that next season the home teams have been announced. I think we've got the Jets, the Bears, and the Jags coming back again. Browns, sorry, yeah. You probably get asked this all the time. What is the future for the NFL in the UK? Is it still just having more and more games? Do we eventually get a playoff game? I've heard muted around. Do we ever get the famous franchise coming to England? The commissioner has always said that he wants to take the game global. We're going to Madrid now. We're going to Mexico. Do we stick with the status quo and what that is, and we enjoy it and we love it, albeit that the Commanders never seem to come over here again? What, in your opinion, where would you like to see it go, but where do you think it will go in the UK?
Well, selfishly, obviously, you'd always like to see more regular season games being played on UK soil. I think probably 3 a season is the way it's going to go. Now, what Jacksonville decides to do over the coming seasons is going to be interesting because they've just had plans approved to rebuild their stadium and the complex around it, which I believe will mean that they can't play in Jacksonville, certainly for one season. So whether they look at playing a couple of games in the UK, as we've seen in each of the last 2 years, but this time it would be committing to a couple of home games in the UK, or they look to share with one of the collegiate teams in the North Florida area. It remains to be seen. But I think 3 regular season games is where we're at with the UK, not least because regular season football in Germany has been a huge success. There's a lot of optimism about what we're going to see in Madrid next season now, with that first regular season game being played at Real Madrid's Santiago Bernabeu Stadium. There's talk of Dublin. The Pittsburgh Steelers are heavily involved in the Irish market, and there are potentially other European venues that are up for discussion as well. We've seen Brazil, we've seen Mexico. So I think what we're looking at as we near probably the end of this decade, 2029, 2030, is an 18th regular season game for all the teams, which then gives the NFL the scope to try and play effectively a full weekly schedule of games elsewhere abroad. I'm not saying that's going to be all at the same weekend. I think those sort of logistics are to be worked out, but it would not surprise me if that's where we end up with, as it stands right now under the current agreements. There's scope for the NFL to have up to 8 regular season games each year played abroad. That I think we're looking at trying to expand that. There's certainly a lot of talk about trying to bring in just an 18th regular season fixture for every franchise. That if that comes into being, then that does open the door to other possibilities, and the natural expansion outlet is more international games. What shape that takes, how they work it out, if it does happen, remains to be seen. But that's certainly that's the road I would see things going as we move forward.
Rich, it's been incredible to have you jump on the bunker with us, mate. All these years ago when I had started it, if someone had said to me, I've been sitting down here talking Washington football with you, mate, I would have said you're absolutely crazy, mate. So thank you so much for taking the time to jump on with us. Just real quick, who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Real quick, where do you start with that one? Look, this weekend obviously goes out saying will decide a lot. I can't wait for the Bills-Ravens game. I think that's the game of the season right now. But all the playoff games in the divisional round are tasty. Look, until somebody, it's a show me league, right? Until somebody shows me that you can beat Patrick Mahomes on the big stage, I don't care what you think of the Kansas City Chiefs of 2024. He is the man. They are the team that get the job done. So I'm going to stick with the Chiefs. And if they win it 3 times in a row, that is history making before our eyes. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with Mahomes and the Chiefs for now.
I know a certain quarterback that can beat him. Just saying. Just saying. Rich, I know
Somebody's getting carried away.
I know, honestly. Where they always say, Andy, where's the Kool-Aid? That's it. I've got a massive bucket of Kool-Aid there. But Rich, just tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find you, my friend, and what you got coming up.
Yeah, I'm on social media. So X, it's at Richard Graves 1. Equally on Instagram, it's RDG Media UK. I have a website as well, which is rdgmedia.uk, where you can find podcast episodes, blogs on the NFL, latest events that I'm involved with as well. We've got an exciting year ahead with football, cricket, Winter Olympics already looking towards this time next year. And of course, that's not mentioning the NFL back in the UK this autumn. Lots to be excited about and lots to look forward to. But before that, we've got the rest of the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So what's not to like about 2025?
It started off with a bang, mate. It started off with a bang. Rich, thanks so much for coming on, mate. I'll get you back on when we're in the Super Bowl. How about that?
Look forward to it. Best of luck this weekend.
Thanks very much, Rich. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of The Bunker. I've been your host, Andy Burrows. Till next time, everybody, bunker down and stay safe.